Hey, welcome into the Stinkin Truth Podcast alongside Mike Evans. I am Mark Schlereth. Thank you so much for making us a part of your day. Mike, how we doing, buddy?
Somebody got a haircut, it looks like.
Oh, yeah. I got a little trimmed up yesterday.
On the sides there yesterday. It looks nice.
Yeah, well, I am speaking to a bunch of Fox advertisers or clients or something of that nature right after we do this podcast. So I'm getting picked up and shuttled from one place in New York to another place in New York, and will for sure dazzle many advertisers.
You want to try out some material right here? A little dry run,
yeah. And then I said, "Look at that escargot."
Yes, lead with that.
Yes,
lead with that. No, you'll kill it as you always do. Telling your go-to stories for the 65th time.
Well, they haven't heard my go-to. Only you have heard.
I know. You got to tell them. You got to tell them the Joe Gibbs story. You got to tell them the Arnold Schwarzenegger story. You got to tell them how you gave Thor, Chris Hemsworth, his workout routine.
Right.
All that stuff. All those stories, man. You'll have them eating out of the palm of your hand.
Yes.
Derek Carr hanging him up. I know you've been a Derek Carr fan for a long time. Shoulder injury. He decided that's enough. He retires, I guess, at least for now. 11 years, 41,000 passing yards, 257 touchdown passes. How will Derek Carr be remembered by you?
A 195. That's how much money he's made, $195 million. No, really, in all honesty, and I think he's like 16th, 17th on the all-time list. And, obviously he hasn't won a lot. He had that one season where he was contending for an MVP, and I think he broke his leg that year. And but you know what I'll remember him for more than anything else? His toughness. That dude took a beating, man. That dude got hit. He just got laid out. And there were so many times where you're like, hey, man, slide. He's fighting for that extra yard. I will always remember his toughness. I'll remember sitting in meetings with him, talking about football, like how intelligent he was as a football player, game planning wise. But again, like his toughness, his leadership, his toughness, the way he went about his craft. I'm a huge, and I always will be a huge Derek Carr fan. I just think he's all that is right. And, a lot of people remember like, oh, he wasn't a full-time winner. He didn't win anything with the Raiders. And that's what people will remember. But I'll look beyond that. And like I said, the way he led his football team, how tough he was, how many hits he took, all those things I think are important. I think it's an important part of the leadership quality of a quarterback. And I will always be a fan. I know it. I know he didn't win at a clip that you would expect the guy who made that much money to win at. But I will always appreciate like those aspects of what his career was all about.
What do the Saints do now at quarterback?
Yeah, I remember the film, or remember the video of Aaron Rodgers showing up with sunglasses in a Chevy Malibu, kind of sneaking in to the Pittsburgh Steelers facility. Don't you? There's part of me that expects Aaron Rodgers to all of a sudden show up, in the Saints in a Malibu, maybe with one of them masks on, and goggles. Like, who knows? There's that like
Mardi Gras or something, right?
Do they reach out to Aaron Rodgers, or do they try to make an in-division trade with the Atlanta Falcons to get Kirk Cousins? Because certainly you can't sit there and say that Tyler Shuck, the kid they drafted in the second round, or Spencer Rattler or Jake Haener are the answers. None of those guys have ever won an NFL game. I think they're 0-7 in career starts between obviously Rattler and between Haener. Shuck has not had a NFL career start, but can you go down that road? And I guess the other thing that is kind of cool about the New Orleans Saints, okay, so you can sit there and say, all right, well, we can still game plan and work hard and do all those things. We're probably going to lose almost every game we play, right? So we're in line to get the first overall draft pick, or at least in the top 2 or 3.
Yeah.
And so then all of a sudden there's Arch Manning, right? Arch Manning from Texas. And obviously, Grandpa made that place made New Orleans. In my time growing up, man, when they put New Orleans on Monday Night Football with Archie Manning, and they had Chuck Muncie back in the day, and man, it was like they were never good, but they were fun to watch. They were exciting. So Arch Manning. I'll tell you the other one, Doug Nussmeier. Do you know who Doug Nussmeier is?
I know he's an Idaho Vandal.
Doug Nussmeier is an Idaho Vandal. He is the quarterback coach of Philly who won the Super Bowl, that went with the head coach Moore over to Kellen Moore to New Orleans as the offensive coordinator. You know that his son is the quarterback of LSU, who's also considered a first round draft choice. So you could either have Arch Manning playing for New Orleans, following his grandfather's footsteps, or the offensive coordinator of the New Orleans Saints, son coaching, or the father coaching and the son playing quarterback for his father in New Orleans. Either one is an unbelievably compelling story, right? You want to talk about storylines, and we always get into storylines. Like we had a great one last night in the NBA draft lottery, right? Great storyline. Hey, we traded away Luka Doncic, and oh wow, Magic! This is unbelievable. What a coincidence. Cooper Flag, you get to go to Dallas. Like, come on. But we love storylines. We love the off-season storylines. We love the season storylines. We talk about storylines all the time. What an unbelievably compelling storyline coming out of New Orleans if, in fact, they decide to just roll the dice with those three quarterbacks and they don't bring in a veteran like a Aaron Rodgers, or they don't bring in a veteran, like a Kirk Cousins. Like, they're in line to probably be at least in the top three, probably number one when it comes to the draft.
The possibility of Arch Manning with New Orleans is unbelievable. It's the kind of story that, if this was the NBA, done. It happens. Ping pong balls magically go their way. No doubt about it. NFL, maybe a little bit more difficult to rig. The schedule. And the NFL is allowing their broadcast partners to come out with a couple of games here and there, and the big full schedule will be announced Wednesday night. A couple of big takeaways. First of all, the Vikings are going to become the first ever NFL team to play back-to-back weeks in internationally in different countries. September 28th, they play in Ireland against Pittsburgh. The next week, they play Cleveland with starting quarterback Shedeur Sanders in London. So how about that?
I see what you did there.
You can take whatever parts of that you'd like to and discuss.
Well, if you're gonna go out there, it makes sense, right? It makes sense to be out there for a couple of weeks. Now, let me ask you this. Just off the top of my head, because that's the first time I've heard this. Like this right there, that's the first time I heard about that scheduling. Okay. So Minnesota playing back-to-back weeks abroad.
Mm-hmm.
Is that kind of a litmus test? Is that like dipping our toe in the water if you're the NFL to say, could we move Jacksonville to London?
Yeah.
Could this be the way it goes? Like, hey, man, you come out, a team comes out, plays a couple of weeks in a row at, your home stadium. Then you go out for a couple of weeks in a row and then you come back. Like, I don't know. Is it the NFL kind of dipping their toe into that landscape? I think for the Minnesota Vikings, if you have to go on the road back-to-back weeks, if you have to go international, this is the best way to do it, right? You get yourself acclimated to the time change. You get acclimated to Europe. I think this makes the most sense. So for the Minnesota Vikings, I think if you're going to do it, that's the best way to do it, right? And I think it's a really cool opportunity for the Vikings on the road early in the year when you're still fairly fresh, to go 2 weeks back to back. One you said in Ireland, the other one in London. Is that so? I think that's legitimate.
So from a player perspective, from a team perspective, I want to ask you, it's clear the NFL, they view the next step we're looking for world domination. We are looking to spread the NFL globally, and they're really, really going heavy with the international games starting again this year. Do you think this is good? Do you think this is good for football? Is it good for the players? Is it good for the teams? Is this the best thing to do for the NFL product? Not the business of the NFL, the product of the NFL.
For the product, no, but it's never been about the product. It's about, it's about continuing, like you said, world domination. It's continued economic domination, right? Like, and the one way you sell it to the Players Association, which, it's the Players Association. What are they going to do? We don't like it.
Yeah.
Less practice time. We're in, So,
winning.
Yeah. Woo. But ultimately, if you're going to grow the net revenue, which is split between ownership and the teams and the players, if you're going to grow it, where's it most likely to grow is internationally, right? As we grow it internationally, look at the NBA, and it's not very often that we use the NBA as a case study for the National Football League. Yeah. But if you look at the NBA right now and what they've done from a global expansion standpoint, and it's an international game. Every year the draft comes along, you see all these international players, and then you see all the international players that we see, from Giannis, who's arguably the third best player in basketball. You've got Doncic, who's maybe the second best player in all the NBA. You've got Joker, who's the best player in the NBA. You've got SGA from Canada, who's probably going to win the MVP, right? You've got, it's an international game. Mm-hmm. And so I'm not saying that we're going to get a bunch of European players who are going to play in the NFL, but that's in all likelihood, if you're going to expand economically, and you've got to expand globally, because I don't know how much, obviously you're Teflon and we as Americans love the NFL, but your most likely expansion aspect and economic aspect, I think, is internationally. I think they've really done a great job of creating a more diverse fan group, like women and men, right? Yep. I think it's become more more of a, I don't know what the split is, but it keeps getting closed and becomes closer and closer to 50-50 between men and women. And now you can bring the international group in there and create some of that. That's the best chance you have to grow globally and grow economically from a global standpoint, I guess.
So I mentioned that some of the other games have been announced by networks. One that we've been talking about a lot here in Denver today, looking forward to Christmas night. Oof. Christmas night, Arrowhead, Broncos, Kansas City. Do you get the sense that the gap is closing between Kansas City and the rest of the AFC West? Would it shock you if the Broncos or the Chargers, maybe the Raiders not ready yet, but the Broncos or Chargers took over and jumped over Kansas City to win the West? Would that surprise you?
It would not surprise me. As a matter of fact, I'm expecting it. Now, that could be wish casting to a degree, right? Because I don't want Kansas City to continue to dominate the division. As long as you have Patrick Mahomes, likelihood is you're going to be considered the top dog in that division until you're not. But you look at what second year of Jim Harbaugh in Chargerland, right, in LA, what they've done running game wise. He talked about his quarterback, the way they addressed the offensive line a year ago. That feels like they're going to take that next step. And I think they've played everybody within the division tough. I certainly know they played the Broncos tough. I think they won a game against Kansas City. Maybe it was the Raiders. I don't know. But, Kansas City won 15 games last year? What was their record? 15-2 last year. One loss to the Broncos, right? Yep. Should have been two losses to the Broncos. And who was there the loss to? Was it to the Chargers? Certainly the Raiders are going to be better, right? They've got a legit head coach. Pete Carroll's a great head coach. Not a good one, a great one. They've got a legit quarterback in Geno Smith. They addressed, their run game, which Pete Carroll wants to lean into. Got one of the best defensive players in Max Crosby in the National Football League. Got an unbelievable tight end in Bowers. Do I think they're going to all of a sudden win the division? No, but are they going to be a much tougher out? Absolutely. The Chargers that way, and the Broncos, right? I mean, the Broncos, I fully expect we look at Bo Nix, and as incredible as his rookie season was, and it didn't start off necessarily that way. It built over time. And now all of a sudden you've addressed the running game. You've addressed the tight end. You've got Evan Ingram off of free agency. Like, you addressed your defense once again, drafting a defensive player, and they were one of the top defenses in all of football. I fully expect the Broncos on Christmas night to just absolutely ruin the hopes and dreams of Kansas City Chiefs fans. I would love to see Sean Payton dress up as the Grinch and come out on the sideline in a Grinch outfit, right? And just be Grinchy and steal the hopes and dreams of all the Christmas little children there in Kansas City as the Broncos absolutely unleash hell and fury against the Kansas City Chiefs.
So they turn Arrowhead into Whoville, is what you're saying.
Exactly. Exactly. And Andy Reid's all like, what's going on? Right? He looks like the mayor.
Yeah,
the mayor of Whoville.
Yes, that's right. There you go.
Exactly.
There you go. Listen, just when you think the Cincinnati Bengals have figured out how to deal with players, along comes this beauty. Okay, you ready for this? All right, so this is dealing with Trey Hendrickson, who's made about $16 million last year going into the final year of his contract. He wants to get paid. He's seen Jamar Chase, T. Higgins get paid. He wants to get paid as well. One of the top pass rushers in the NFL for a Cincinnati defense that was shredded last year. They need every good defensive player they can get. So hasn't not had a deal worked out. He was at their workouts, their mini camp, but did not participate. Bengals executive vice president Katie Blackburn said, quote, "It's on him," Trey Hendrickson, "it's on him to be happy at some point, and he should be happy at certain rates that maybe he doesn't think he'd be happy at. You're going to get this, and you're going to like it." Is that the message being sent to Trey Hendrickson?
Yeah, I mean, this blows me away. First and foremost, like, executives in the NFL and the people who put the Cincinnati Bengals together. Now, they haven't made the playoffs in the last 2 years. Yeah. And, their quarterback has gotten hurt. Why? Well, because, they don't address things that are important. Like, they want to build their team from the outside in, right? And, Joe Burrow, to his credit, and I had him on our show Breakfast Ball during the Super Bowl. He's like, "Hey, man, I'd renegotiate my contract to make sure I get my receivers, this, that, and the other." And hey, that's fine. It's commendable. And I think Joe Burrow is the all balls, man. I love Joe Burrow. I think he's great. But the bottom line, Mike, is I heard their offensive coordinator come out a month ago or so and say, "Hey, man, we're just going to outscore people." Really? Because how did that work for you last year, outscoring people? They put 25 plus points on the board last year 11 times. I believe it was 11 times. You know what their record was? 5-6. Worst record in the history of anybody to put up 25 plus points. Like, our research guy did that. If it's wrong, blame it on Fox Research, because who knows what they're doing. But you know what? They put it on TV. I read it. It was something of that nature. Not 100% sure. A little iffy on that. But, if it's, I'm sure you Cincinnati Bengal fans will correct me. But here's the point is, it's not how you win football games. You didn't win by outscoring people last year. You know why? Because you couldn't outscore people. You know why? Because you couldn't play defense. Trey Hendrickson has led the league in sacks, I believe, the last 2 seasons in a row. The guy is an absolute machine. Now, he's a bit older than Myles Garrett, so I get that you're probably not going to get Myles Garrett money. But to think that he's going to play for you for $16 million a year, and then the Cincinnati Bengals, this would be something that would piss me off if I was in the locker room, right? And I was one of his teammates. It irritate me if they sit there and say, "Hey, listen, some point you're going to have to be happy with what we're paying you. And ultimately, we'll give you our blessing to go out and seek a trade." But because he's got a year on his contract, right? people aren't going to be like, hey, we're going to give you all this, draft capital or all this capital and then have to also pay him. So he's kind of between a rock and a hard place, and they're playing hardball with a guy that has been the best player on their defense. I mean, by far. And so I just look at that stuff, and the way that stuff sits in a locker room is not good, because what you're saying to your team is, hey, man, you can do everything the right way, right? And we know that contracts at a certain point are meant to be renegotiated if a player outperforms his contract. And what we're going to do is we're going to screw you. Because if Trey Hendrickson was a 6-sack guy, you know what they do? They cut his ass. Or they would make him go take less money.
Right.
And so, what's the old saying, what's good for the goose is good for the gander, not with the Cincinnati Bengals management. And that would really irritate me. What it creates, Mike, for me, and it may be different in Cincinnati, I don't know, but just a player in me, it creates a room of independent contractors. I did my job. And when you have independent contractors, you know what you don't do? You don't sacrifice for people. You make sure you do your job and only your job. And that's not good enough to win. That's not good enough to be a playoff team. That's not good enough to make noise in the playoffs. You've got to be sold out for one another to do that. And so you create, and it's unintentional, it's just, hey, we're going to play hardball business. But that's what you create inside your own locker room. And that becomes a toxic place.
All right, last chance to work on some fresh material for the Fox advertisers here. You want to try anything out here?
Yeah. Go ahead, ask me. Just ask me a question off the top of your head. Any question. Pretend that you're a Fox executive asking me a question in front of 50 of our top advertisers.
Top advertisers. Yeah. Okay. Mark, I've heard. Mark, you were part of the first Broncos team to win a Super Bowl.
Yes, yeah.
Super Bowl 32. When you look back on that season, what was the key turning point, you think, in them being able to win a championship?
Well, it's really interesting, Mike. Actually, I know what you're looking. I know the story you're looking for, but I'm gonna preempt you. I'm going with a different story.
Oh, a different one.
Right. We just talked about your willingness to sacrifice.
Yeah.
Your willingness to be about others. Like, I think one of the things.
I like this story. Folks, you're going to like this story. I like this.
It's amazing. It's amazing what you can accomplish when nobody cares who gets the credit. Right? Our Super Bowl kind of MVP, our team MVP, was a guy that played quarterback. I don't know if you know his name. His name was John Elway. And he's one of the best to ever do it. And before we played in Super Bowl 32, Mike Shanahan had a couple of things that were automatic, 100% tells with what the Green Bay Packers did. And Mike called John Elway to his office and said to him,
"This is good. This is good.
You are not." He goes, you want to win the Super Bowl. And John said, of course I want to win. Like, I've gone to 3 of them, got, ramshackled in all 3 of them. Like, of course I want to win. And he goes, are you okay with not being the MVP for us to win this game? He's like, you're not gonna be the reason we win it. And John was like, I don't give a shit. I just want to win. Like, I want, like, my career, my legacy, and all these things, right? And so Mike was like, great. And we put this game plan together, Mike. And I'll never forget, it was like the second play of the game. So we got into, and I've told you this before, we got into strong right slot. So we had a tight end on the right side, Shannon Sharp, fullback Howard Griffith on the right side, about 2 yards, 3 yards off the line of scrimmage. And we had Terrell Davis in I, or it wasn't I, but it's dotted behind the back or behind the quarterback at about 7 yards under center. And then we had Eddie McCaffrey come over, and he was in the slot. So you had Rod Smith and Eddie McCaffrey. Every time you did that formation, the Packers adjusted by taking their outside linebacker, right, and moving him out away from the line of scrimmage and away from the interior where he normally lines up. And he actually exchanges responsibilities with the safety. And the safety would come zipping down in there, buzzing down. And anytime you'd run strong, he would make tackles in the backfield. And Mike Shanahan put this film on for us. And it was time and time and time again, opponent after opponent after opponent. They'd be scooping out the backside. The guard be chasing that linebacker who's actually now playing safety in essence. And nobody ever picked up their safety, who was Leroy Butler. And he was making freaking tackles in the backfield, one after the other, after the other, after the other. I mean, it was like, I guarantee you Mike put on 30 plays in a team meeting. As an offense, we all sat there and watched one after the other, after the other, after the other, tackle in the backfield, tackle in the backfield, tackle in the backfield, tackle in the backfield. And he said, we're just going to exchange responsibilities. Guard, you take and we just turn over the linebacker. Eddie Mack, you've got the linebacker. Guard, Stink. Guard, Brian Habib, you take the safety. So we line up, I think it's the second play of the game. We call strong right slot 18 handoff. Right? Line up. Sure enough, we get the look. I'm in my stance going zim, 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 zim. You know, I'm like, alert, zim, alert, right? It opened up like the Red Sea. I hit Leroy Butler in the teeth, right? Totally unexpecting anybody to pick him up. TD cuts back for like 15 yards. And I am like, I look at the end of the play, like I look at Zim and go, oh shit, we got him. Like we got him.
That's so cool.
And TD gets 150. It misses a quarter, essentially misses a quarter with a migraine or misses part of a quarter with a migraine. And we still get him for 157 yards and 3 TDs.
Great story. Include that. Maybe shorten up a little bit, but yeah, I mean, that's a great lesson to anybody out there watching. You know, the idea about being willing to sacrifice. If John Elway, of all people, could say, I don't care what my stats look like.
Yeah.
I want to win a Super Bowl, man.
Yeah, and his stats were bad, Bob.
They weren't good. They were one of the worst stats for a Super Bowl winning quarterback.
At the time, it was the worst. Ben Roethlisberger usurped him in that game against Seattle. But at the time, like Super Bowl, whatever it was, 40, I think, in Detroit or whatever it was. But at the time, they were the worst statistics of a winning quarterback in the history of the Super Bowl.
And he did not give a damn. You're right. You're right. Great story.
He couldn't care less.
Great story. All right. There you go.
See, I shocked you. I went with a different. I knew what you were expecting.
I know. I wasn't expecting that one. You threw me a curveball.
Like a book, my friend. Read you like a book.
Curveball.
Hey, for everybody involved, the Stinkin Truth podcast, man, we appreciate you guys so much. Schedule release in full force when we come back. It's going to be awesome. For Mike, I am Mark. Thank you so much for making us a part of your day. We'll talk to you later on in the week.